Andre Cilliers, currency expert at TreasuryOne. Rand is still strong. I'm seeing a lot of bull cases emerging for the Rand to go lower than 15 Rand to the dollar. Please unpack what this optimism is all about, Andre.
Well, I think we can start with a gold price that's almost $1,900. That's definitely a positive for the Rand. If you look at the other commodities, they're also doing well, but I would single out gold. The reasons for gold being up here, in my opinion, is Russia and the US not sorting out what's happening in the Ukraine and people getting jittery about that. But then one other important one, it's the 21st today, and in 2 days' time, Mr. Enoch Godongwana will speak to us. We've heard Mr. Ramaphosa opening Parliament. He sounded quite upbeat and quite optimistic. Markets locally generally accepted that very positively. Now, Mr. Godongwana will give us firstly statistics. He will tell us what the overrun of tax collection was because of a fantastic year for the tax collection side. That will obviously impact positively on your deficits and on your borrowings as a percentage of GDP. And I think those figures could even be more positive than what was anticipated during the medium term budget speech in October. So, from that side, definitely some optimism.
Let's go to the US now. The Fed is set to lift rates in March. Initially, the consensus was a 25 basis point hike. Given inflation is running unabated, many analysts and the Wall Street banks are now pricing in a 50 basis point move. What would a 50 basis point interest rate hike for the Fed mean for the Rand dollar price action?
What would it mean for the Rand? I personally think that if they go 50 basis points, it will be accepted very neutrally by the market, and the market will then start pricing in more moves. So it doesn't really matter what the Fed does. As far as I said, and what I've said before, the markets will be disappointed with what the Fed does. They can't do anything right at the moment. The markets will be disappointed. I foresee that the dollar could most probably weaken because of a 50 basis point increase, because that's priced into the markets. Um, and if that's the case, then that will be positive for the Rand. We could then very well see that the euro goes back above the 114 levels, closer to the 115 levels, which will be positive for emerging markets. We have also seen that we've got already a interest rate that was hiked again. We can anticipate that we could look forward to another one. And as I said before, the emerging market space and a lot of other countries is ahead of what the Federal Reserve is doing. So they're on the negative, they're on the defense, which makes it difficult for them.
The Russian, Ukraine, NATO, all of this related conflict, which currency pairs does that materially affect?
Well, that normally materially affects the value of the dollar. And under normal circumstances, you would see that the dollar increases a bit in value, but we have seen that actually. Remember that the last time that we spoke and we looked at the euro, we were above the 114 levels. So we had seen a stronger euro, but we are slightly cushioned against that stronger dollar because of the gold price also benefiting from turmoil like that. And us being a commodity currency and also very strong on the gold side, we benefit from that. So we slightly cushioned against that movement of the dollar. Of course, if it continues and it goes into a full scale war, then we will not be cushioned, and then we will definitely see a stronger dollar because people will flight into safe haven areas.
What are your technicals telling you about the short-term price action specifically in the Rand dollar price?
Well, we're below the 1520. Now, you will recall that the last time we spoke, and I said if it go below 1520, we could very easily go to sub 15. We had touched below the 15 level last week. We now are moving slightly closer to the 1520 levels again. But on the top side, 1520, that was a barrier to get stronger is now a barrier going weaker. So I would say that we're now into a new area of the 1480, 1520, with 1480 a next target and 1520 a barrier before we could go higher into a range above.
Andre, what are you advising clients at the moment? Are you telling them to take rands to hard currencies, or put differently, what is your long-term prediction with the rand dollar or any hard currency? Is it going to be this persistent weakening that we've seen for the last 20 years? Is that set to continue?
I'm not of the opinion that that's set to continue. We must remember that at this point in time, our inflation rate is lower than that of the US. So, in the years that we had an inflation rate well above that of the US, the currency had to correct in value every year, at least by the inflation rate differential, to remain competitive with what happens in America. Overall, one can easily just say that we had to correct with the inflation differential between ourselves and our major trading counterparts. That situation is slightly reversed at the moment. And because of that, the currency does not need to give way that much. You ask me what's my advice to clients. My advice has always been very, very simple. I don't advise anybody to take everything that they own and put it into a hard currency. I always advise a client to have a balanced portfolio of investments. That would include certain amounts in hard currency, certain amounts in the rand, certain amounts in equity, certain amounts in property, certain amounts in money market, certain amounts in bonds. All over, a balanced portfolio. And the old people that really told us this ages and ages and ages ago, they said, don't keep all your eggs in one basket. Don't keep all your eggs in one currency either. Somebody had actually mentioned to me the other day that if you go back into the Bible, somewhere in the Bible it actually says that you should keep your money in more than one currency. So, a very old piece of advice. Don't keep all your eggs in one basket or in one currency.